This is the BBC.
Simon Mayo, 88 to 91 FM, BBC Radio 2.
Hello and welcome. This is another Confessions podcast from your friends right here, where we play these jingles,
BBC Radio 2.
which is normally followed by...
Mayo, Simon Mayo.
and that's me. So it's another Confessions podcast. Some more terrible tales from the very sinful Radio 2 listener, all looking for some forgiveness from the juggernauts of justice, which in this case is kind of you, really. This week's concise collection features We Don't Need No Education. Yes. Hey, hey, we're the surgeons. I know. Love letters straight from the heart. And the more I see you... Oh, I've run out of ducks. The more I see you, the less I want you. I know. Well, we haven't had the Idas for a while. Still the best ducks in the world. Right, that's enough of that. And on with the confessions for this week. Father Simon and the Forgiving Collective says, Steve, my confession takes us back to the late 60s, a world of Harold Wilson Tupperware parties in Monty Python. I was living in rural Northamptonshire in a small village that comprised several farms, houses, one shop, a church and a small 3-classroom primary school. Life was great growing up in the village. My two brothers and I would spend weekends and holidays climbing trees, exploring farm buildings, hitching lifts on tractors, making cutlasses, like as pirates do, with broadswords out of sticks, and building fires in places we probably weren't meant to. But they were different times, everybody.
Yes, they were.
And obviously,
You know.
what you got away with in the 60s doesn't mean you can get away with
No,
it
you
now.
can't.
in
Fire
any
was
way.
less dangerous back then.
That's right. Fire was less hot. And it just turned up in fewer places. My mum was the school cook by day and the caretaker by night. We would run home from school at the last bell, get a bite to eat, then go back into school to help mum. I say we, it was usually me and my younger brother, who I called Stumpy, because he had very short legs for his age.
Again, different times.
Well, that's what brothers probably still do that to this day,
Yeah,
I would
that's
think.
right.
My older brother was too concerned with his studies to go back to school. Apparently he was a genius, especially when it came to reading. Your brother is an excellent reader, the teachers would constantly say to me. Is he still reading all the books and papers? They would all say, yes, miss, I would say through gritted teeth. What a swat he was, in capital letters. Do people still say swat?
No, the other words now.
Thanks. Father Simon, the school was a noisy place during the day, but at night it became something else, especially for an 8-year-old boy. It became a temple of mischief. After arriving back at school, Mum would give me and Stumpy a few jobs to do. My guess is that Mum didn't call him Stumpy, but anyway. First would be to sweep the hall with a large V-shaped brush that would be open out to collect the day's debris. After this, my mum would use a buffer machine to clean the floor. My mum would fight with this machine for ages, and this would give us time to explore. The library was a favourite place, Father Simon. Stumpy and I thought that sorting books alphabetically by author was boring, so we would arrange some sections by content. So we rearranged the books: D for dinosaurs, dancing and daredevils, E for electricity, elephants and explorers, G for girls, goalkeepers and giants. Some sections we arranged by size, some by the colour of the cover, that kind of thing. Having idled away some time doing some sensible librarianing, we would undertake the main aim of our nighttime adventures, which was Operation House Points. The school had 2 houses named after castles. Conway was red and Windsor was yellow. Stumpy and I were in Windsor. Our big brother, the know-it-all, remember him, the SWAT? Yeah, Swatty. He was in Conway. Boo. At school, each pupil got house points for hard work, achievement and good behaviour. In each classroom, there was a counter below a coloured shield for each house. In the main hall, there was a larger version of these. When a pupil earned themselves a house point, they would go up to the front of the class, move the counter of their house up and earn a house point. Every Friday, the points would be transferred to the large ladder in the hall. This ladder would mostly be hidden by a large TV on a metal frame and wheels. We watched the moon landing on it in 1969. I had noticed that the teachers never took any note of how many points had been awarded. There were no records kept. So, Father Simon, as you might be guessing, each evening we would slip into each class and move the yellow counters up and the red counters down, just enough so it wouldn't get noticed. We weren't foolhardy, we were experienced in the art of deception, some days making it look like red was winning, but of course, come the end of the week, yellow would just be edging in front. Can you imagine the excitement at the end of term as Windsor won the House Cup again? Ha ha! And again, yes, and again. I will never forget the look on Swatty's face as we went up on stage during the final assembly of each term and graciously accepted the packs of spangles handed out as a reward to the winning house. Yes, boiled sweets all round. In your face, Conway. As we didn't say, back in the 60s, but probably should have. I think in total we won it 9 terms in a row, which is probably to this day a school record. But I don't ask forgiveness from Swatty. He went on to have a good career in the military, so no damage done. No, Father Simon, I ask forgiveness from those parents of the pupils in Conway House who never ever got to see their child up on stage with a packet of spangles at the end of the year. And forgiveness from all those children who never got the sweets because of Stumpy and I's after-hours adjustments. Juggernauts of justice, I fall at your feet in your mercy. Well, you know, we'd all do this. Absolutely, we'd do the same thing. You got a chance to fiddle the house point system? I think people probably would. The modern equivalent would be logging on, finding the password of which obviously we wouldn't be doing.
No,
but if you could fix it so that your house was the winning house, I think maybe it's just me. Anyway, Sister Bobby.
Steve, I'm actually quite surprised that's all you did if you had the run of the school. I thought raiding the kitchen cupboards would have been my first thing, trying to find biscuits, sweets, anything that I wasn't allowed to have. I think, Steve, it's unlikely I'm going to forgive you because the whole thing about house points is meant to inspire you. You could have genuinely earned house points by working harder or doing more or doing something else. You cheated. And basically, you carried on cheating. I'm really surprised, actually, the teachers didn't notice
He
this.
did rearrange the library. That was quite interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, but no useful way that no one else knew what the order was.
Blue covers over there, red covers over there.
It helps with clothes, but not with books, I think.
Girls
Steve,
and
you are
goalkeepers.
not forgiven.
Okay. What, you arrange your wardrobe according to colour?
Well, no, but I can see... No, I don't, actually. But I can see how colours work.
Matt does, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brother Matthew.
Yes. Surely the point of house points is that it's very much the spirit of the collective, isn't it? That we all strive together, and at the end of the week, if we've all striven hard enough, then we all get a spangles and a prize. And clearly, this has undermined the
very
spirit,
fabric.
the very fabric of the collective of us all joining together. However, it's a flawed system because if no one's keeping track of who's getting how many points every day, then it's just open to abuse. And therefore, it's the teacher's fault, and therefore, he's definitely forgiven.
Father Simon and the Juggernauts of Justice, I'd like to plead for absolution for a sin that has been with me for quite some years now. My confession is regarding something that took place at a large, well-respected teaching hospital in the late 80s when I was a student nurse. Neighbours was the show of the moment. Kylie and Jason were riding high in the charts, in the top 40 in the hit parade. Remember that?
Yes.
Yes. During the second year of my training, I was placed for a couple of months in the operating theatres to learn more about the role of the theatre nurse and see what happens to the patients going in for surgery. This was an exciting experience. Seeing the insides of people in glorious technicolor rather than the dull pages of an anatomy book. I just remembered there was a word I was going to rehearse. I was placed in the vascular transplant and general theatres.
Well done.
So I got to see such amazing things as liver transplants, aortic aneurysm repairs, as well as appendicotomies.
Appendectomies? No.
Well, it doesn't really look... It's not spelled appendectomy.
Is that where they...
It says appendis and then ctomies.
Maybe that's where they just have a look and don't take it out.
Let's have a look.
One of those.
Yes.
Removal of lumps and bumps and varicose vein stripping and that kind of thing. This is what's involved.
Being to see what we should have read out of 12A.
As my experience grew, I was allowed to scrub in and assist with some of these smaller, simpler surgeries, but a lot of the time was spent either peering over the surgeon's shoulder or being a runner to fetch things that might be needed. There was a sweetie jar in the prep room, and sometimes I'd be asked to hand the sweets round. Seeing all those faces behind theatre masks chewing on toffees was quite amusing. We'll have to take your word for it. Not that amusing, I would have thought.
No, is that a thing? I didn't know that happened.
I think I'm going to have a Nuttall's Minto today. Could you get them, please?
Sugar for the
Junior
brain, though.
nurse? Sugar for the brain, that's what you need.
Yeah, focus.
Okay. However, my confession is not related to the time I thought extra strong mints would be a good idea, and I managed to bring the entire theatre to a standstill while everyone's eyes started to water as the strong mint fumes went up the noses of those behind the masks rather than out into the air. It's not about that. The operating theatre was very modern and included a CD player in the corner, back in the day when having a CD player was super contemporary. It had a selection of the surgeon's favourite music to help them get through the tiring surgery. There was quite a bit of classical music, but also quite an eclectic mix of old and modern, rock and pop and electronic, and sometimes towards the end of a list, something with a decent beat would go on. And this is not written by a youngster. And those not actively involved in the surgery might even have a bit of a bop, it says.
Okay.
Here. Okay.
It's not filling me with confidence.
Father Simon, this is where my confession begins. Toward the end of an afternoon of day case minor surgery, the aforementioned lumps, bumps and veins and so on, a chap came in for a vasectomy and had opted to have it done under a local anaesthetic. I don't understand why you would do that. I do understand why you would do that. But anyway, as he was awake, I offered him a choice of music.
Oh. Okay.
From the limited selection that was available. Because it's not like you couldn't stream something in the 80s.
No, that's so true.
From our aforechosen list of CDs, Mr. Vasectomy, what would you like to play? He opted for the greatest hits of the Monkees. So, the operation... Well, he was of that particular...
Yeah, that's quite a good choice.
The operation was going well. The chap was in good spirits, considering the surgeon was rummaging around in his nethers. And
what?
And then this came on. So this comes over the speakers. I decided it'd be fun to put on a little show for the patient. Having been a bit of a fan of the reruns of their classic TV show, I knew how to do the walk that the members of the Monkees did in the credits. It's like a crossover leg thing down the street. People can do that now. Anyway, so I knew how to do this walk. So that's what we did. The one where we're all in a line, we're walking forward, stepping wide in front of each other's legs and having a good time. I persuaded my 3 other colleagues to join me in the walk, and then the patient, unfortunately, started to belly laugh.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah. It must have been a good local anaesthetic, obviously, to belly laugh. But anyway, it caused him to jiggle.
Oh, no.
Just a little bit, on the operating table, just as the surgeon was inserting the closing stitches. I therefore seek absolution, not for the stern talking to my colleagues and I got from the surgeon and the scrub nurse for turning their theatre into a theatre, but from the man who now has a slightly crooked scar in a place that only people that are very close to him might actually see, and who probably can't listen to the Monkees ever again without being transported back to an operating theatre in the late 1980s. Well, you know, you can understand the point. Does he want to hear this again? No, he absolutely doesn't. I hope you're in a forgiving mood. I've carried this guilt with me for many years. My taste of operating theatre nursing has given me some memories and a valuable insight, but I decided theatre nursing wasn't for me. I'm still working as a nurse. It'll be 30 years in the NHS this year for me. That's what Debbie is saying. That's Debbie's story. I only remember one other vasectomy confession, and it was never read out.
Oh, really? Okay.
So anyway, that's one of the rare ones that actually can make it on.
Yes.
So Debbie, thanks for the tale. I understand, you know, she was trying to encourage, she was trying to be helpful. It's a stressful time for everybody, particularly the guy on the operating table. But maybe don't put on a show, Debbie. What do you say, Sister Bobby?
Well, you see, the thing is, I'm quite heartened by this story, actually, because, of course, look, it's a serious business. We all know. You're fixing broken people. You know, who knows what's going to happen? It's a serious, but we can't fault you. It's a fabulous job that you're doing. And actually, I'm only delighted that you're trying to kind of get through it, because it is serious most of the time. So the very fact that all of you try and have a laugh, and I love the idea of sweets and keep you going. And Debbie, I have to say, in this instance, because it does actually depend, of course, on the patient, and that I think actually the patient went with it. If it'd been a different patient, maybe not. You see, it's all those things. Do you get it right at the time?
It was his idea,
Yeah.
and he laughed. So he did find it funny. He was unaware of the slight
Redesign.
the redesign because of the good old local anaesthetic.
So, Debbie, I'm only heartened. I'm delighted. I hope that all surgeries is as good fun as this. You are absolutely forgiven.
Brother Matthew.
Well, what an insight this is into shenanigans in operating theatres. And we're about to say different times, but I don't know. Do they still go on? Do they still give each other sweets? I know they play music, don't they? But they do sweets and dances and stuff like that when it's all
Whole
going
shows.
on.
I would like a series of
West Side Story, Away to Your Right. Oh, yes.
Could I have a selection of hits from Fiddler on the Roof?
Yes.
Thank you.
Take me through the next half hour. So I'm going to forgive, because this has taken us into a world that I had no knowledge of at all. So yes, very impressed, and I mean, he's fine, isn't he? He was fine, probably in the end. Yeah, almost certainly. So yeah, definitely forgiven.
Tonight comes from Bilbo. Thanks, Bilbo. Inspired, I believe, by our Valentine's Day. Why are you looking puzzled there, Bobby?
Well, both Matt and I went, another Bilbo.
Well, it says Bilbo. I
But
don't.
it's inspired by the other Bilbo who wrote in last
a week
week.
ago.
We done this before.
Just checking.
Don't think so. Anyway, if you recognise it, just let me know.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't think we have.
Okay, no,
Right,
go
okay.
ahead.
I've lost all my confidence. Father Simon and Confessional Collective. This is a tale of shame, woe and unrequited teenage love that has been haunting me these last 30 years. Many a time I tried to steel myself to recount the dark tale, but only now have I summoned the strength to relive the shame in public. How are we doing so far?
Very good. This is a new one.
It was 1986. I was in the last year of sixth form and had a part-time job in what was then Safeways in Biggin Hill. There I met the delightful S. She's just going to be known as the initial, okay? Delightful S, who was at a different school to me, and I only saw her at work. She was lovely, smart, funny, and very, very hot, even in her pale brown Safeway checkout dress uniform. How my heart would skip a beat if I should have the good fortune to be on the till next to her and gaze longingly at her over the endless tides of groceries as they drifted by on the checkout belt like so much flotsam. This guy is in love.
Poet.
He is, isn't he? Eh? Even in Safeways in Biggin Hill.
Yeah.
In his brown,
Thing.
shiny outfit. I would maybe try to impress her with some witticisms when there were no customers around, but generally failed due to gawky teenage ineptitude. I couldn't bring myself to ask her out directly. The words just seemed to come out all choked by teenage insecurities and hang-ups, obviously. My more advanced wooings were similarly inept. I would anonymously send her big Valentine's cards, you know, the pink padded ones that came in a box. Haven't seen those for a while. And many a night, after a skinful at the Fox and Hounds, I would make my way past her house, drunkenly singing mournful love songs at midnight.
Oh, I bet that worked.
Dire Straits' Romeo and Juliet was a favourite.
Yeah.
I think that's stalking.
Cast iron. Gonna be okay.
Different
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Eventually, I got invited round to her house for tea, where I met her parents and her menacing, oversized brother. Her parents were very nice, decent people who were very tolerant of this inept idiot trying to make a pass at their daughter. Eventually, I left Biggin Hill for bigger things. I went to university in Bath, and my communications with the delightful S were confined to letters. These were mostly inept ramblings trying to impress her with how cool I was, in the vain hope that I would progress my relationship with her. As we didn't say back then, we would decorate the envelopes to each other with quotations and song lyrics. Tea in the Sahara by the Police was one, I recall. Yeah, we've all done this. Suffice to say that there's nothing like distance to kill a relationship, and eventually one of her letters mentioned she'd started seeing another guy. Curse him. I say another guy, but given I'd been so inept at dating the delightful S, I'm not sure she was actually convinced we were in a relationship anyway. However, the letters continued and I would receive one from her every couple of weeks, a glimmer of hope that somehow some spark could be kindled and we could be together. But mostly my letters comprised terrible teenage ramblings. Had I mentioned how inept I was at trying to woo this girl? I think you have, actually, Bilbo 2. Anyway, 1986 turns to 87, and one spring day in a well-stocked stationery shop in Bath, I noticed a range of comical envelopes. Not conical envelopes, these are comical envelopes. This seemed like a fine play on the lyric-quoting envelopes that we used to exchange, and so the one I chose was an official-looking plain brown example with the words "urgent" in capital letters, "pregnancy test results" printed on the front.
No.
Now, you also have to remember this is 1987. People didn't have computers and printers and the ability to knock this kind of stuff up themselves, and as a result, this envelope did look pretty authentic. But my hubris was such that surely no one would believe that a test lab would put that on the front of the envelope, right? I mean, crazy. That's how I justified it. It was a jolly jape. So off went my letter full of inept ramblings, and I awaited a response and maybe a compliment on my very humorous choice of envelope. Matt has his head in his hands. Bobby's mouth is still open. Strangely and contrary to our regular pattern of correspondence, I didn't receive a reply
really?
the next week or the next, and I began to get worried. Maybe my letter got lost in the post.
Yeah, maybe that's
Maybe
it.
she's moved.
Yeah.
Maybe she's so in love with this other guy that she can't be bothered with writing to me anymore. No, the truth was far worse. I did eventually get a short reply, plain envelope, no decorations this time, not a good sign. It transpired that her very nice parents had collected the post off the front doormat, found an official-looking envelope with the words "urgent pregnancy test results" printed on the front. Instead of realising this was an obvious jolly jape and handing this over to the delightful S, they had summoned the entire family, including her menacing oversized brother, in the front room of their house, sat the delightful S and the other guy, curse him, on the sofa, and confronted them with his envelope.
No.
"What is the meaning of this?" demanded an explanation. Apparently there were tears, wailing, gnashing of teeth, and that sort of thing from the parents. Of course, on opening the official-looking envelope, all it contained was a page of my inept ramblings again, which probably didn't go down too well given the circumstances, you think. How I wished that the ground would just open up and swallow me whole and suck me down into some dark, cheerless place where I could be completely forgotten by all decent human beings. But no, that would have been the easy way out. Time to man up, I thought, and I wrote the most contrite, grovelling apology imaginable to her and her nice parents. What bad taste my jolly jape had been, how inept, etc. No fancy envelope this time. I got a reply the next week that they had calmed down a bit, but the thought of unmarried teenage pregnancy had resulted in her being totally and irrevocably banned from seeing the other guy, curse him, and that my jolly jape had ended their budding relationship. I couldn't bring myself to reply to her after that, and I never saw or spoke with the delightful S ever again. The look on Bobby's face, she's harsh, very, very stern. I don't seek forgiveness for the envelope. It was a jolly jape after all, and I certainly don't seek forgiveness for breaking up the relationship with the other guy. Curse him. Actually, that was a bit of a result. Nor do I seek forgiveness from her nice parents. Come on, who'd actually fall for that? What I actually seek forgiveness for not replying to her last letter and completely losing touch with her. Of course, my inaction and ineptitude carried its own punishment, and I carried a burden of unrequited love for many years after that. But absolution from the confessional collective may salve my soul in that regard. Maybe, says Bilbo, but not that Bilbo, he's another Bilbo. We haven't done that one before, I don't think.
No, it's very good.
So, I mean, clearly this particular Bilbo is an idiot. I mean, that's the first thing that needs to be said. Bobby is still looking absolutely mad as hell. Here we go, Sister Bobby from the Priory.
To be quite honest, I'm a few words. I might have to go stand in the corner and calm down. What were you thinking? Why was this ever a jolly jape? I mean, these are sensitive time for parents and adolescent children. You know, everyone's sitting there biting their nails, making sure nothing untoward happens. You know, it's a difficult time for parents and for growing up kids. That is not jolly jape fun at all. I think you're an absolute idiot. Absolute idiot. And I think for the girl's sake, it's really good that you didn't write back to her. Oh,
This just in.
none, not forgiven.
Bilbo may actually be someone called David.
Oh,
Just checking that.
not
Okay.
forgiven, David.
Well, he's probably David, but he likes to be known as Bilbo.
That's great for him.
Anyway, what do you think there?
I think I've said before on Valentine's, never go funny. Never, ever, ever go... I know this wasn't a Valentine's thing, but it was a love letter thing. Never, ever, ever go funny. Make it love. Love, 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 love. Never funny. That said, it was obviously a joke. It was a joke. And is it just me, or did the parents overreact just a little bit? We're going to get you all in the room, and we're opening up this envelope. Oh, it turns out it was a joke. Oh, by the way, you two can never see each other again. A little bit too much, I think. So really, I don't think there's a lot to forgive, other than the fact that he's held this candle for S. He needs to get over that. So actually, yes, I am not going to forgive, because quite clearly this has been festering for a while. I don't want forgiveness from the parents or the boyfriend or the brother or whatever. I want forgiveness from S. Get over it. She's moved on. So should you.
Dear Collective, my confession goes back into a world before the internet, before mobile phones, and just before Beatlemania. The year is 1963. By the way, I should say about this confession is that there is a requirement for me to do an accent, but I'm not going to do it because I won't get anywhere close. So what I'll do is I'll just read. It is written out phonetically for me, but you're just going to have to do the voice yourself. Otherwise, I risk kind of annoying people more than normal. I know.
Is it Slovakian or something like that?
No. We'll get there. So the year is 1963. The venue is Newcastle City Hall. There's the clue. And the event is the Chris Montez Tour. As some of your older listeners may recall, Chris Montez was a young American singer with a big hit called Let's Dance. Second on the bill was Tommy Rowe, who had a maudlin hit about a folk singer. Later on, of course, he would have a bigger hit with Dizzy, but he hadn't had that hit just yet. And there, way, way down the bill, was a new group called The Beatles. I was 15, says Mazza, and having heard Love Me Do crackling over the radio, I knew that I just had to see them. In those far-off days, it was possible to sit on the stage behind the performers on stepped choir stalls, and so our tickets were half the normal price, mainly because you only saw the backs of the performers, and the sound systems were so rubbish that it was very difficult to hear anything at all. The concert started with someone long forgotten, can't remember, and then came the Beatles. John Lennon turned and smiled at us a couple of times, but apart from that, we only saw the backs of the Fab Four and heard almost nothing, but we were in heaven. We were, however, very naive and assumed that our applause, loud and enthusiastic and sustained, but very well behaved, would bring them back for an encore, but no such luck. There followed an interval and then straight onto Tommy Rowe, and the ominous sound of frustrated pubescent girls began to rumble and grow. Tommy left the stage to booze and calls for the Beatles to come back. Not quite the reception he was hoping for, I imagine. No, I imagine you're absolutely right. Poor Tommy Rowe.
Yeah.
Next on was the headliner, Chris Montez. Chris was a small man dressed in a smart Italian-type suit, and he was clearly annoyed by the, by now, deafening calls for the Beatles to come back. As he broke into his big number, he seemed to become desperate, and before we knew it, he'd begun to strip. I know. And here is the aforementioned big number from Chris Montez. Just undoing the top button. So he started with his tie, twirling it round his head and throwing it into the stalls. And then came his jacket, again, twirling and dancing, very suggestively, I might tell you. Chris was now down to his shirt, and he began to unbutton his top button. Oof. I think that's nothing.
I say, I'm breaking into a sweat.
Undid his top button. But then something happened at that point that I still cannot explain. It hasn't happened to me before or since.
No idea what.
It was as if all of us sitting on the stage acted as one. Whipped to a frenzy, we got to our feet and we rushed across the stage and we grabbed this poor man off his feet. We were pawing at him with abandon. In fact, I think I may even have touched his thighs twice and his chest. He was stocky, I can tell you, and underneath that Italian suit, he was rocking a six-pack, as we didn't say back in the early 1960s. There was no real security in those days, but the caretaker came rushing onto the stage with with a stage brush.
Quite right.
This is the security. He began brushing at our feet and legs, shouting in broad Geordie.
Go on.
No. I'm not. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it as I speak, and then
Away and-
okay. No,
away and
no, I'm
something.
not. That's the reason why I'm not doing it. Get it. He says, "Get off him, you lasses, and all your mams, and you'll get wrong when you get home." Okay, in a broad Geordie accent, by which he means, I believe, get off the stage now. I know all your mothers, and you'll get a telling off when you get home.
Girls.
It was like being doused in cold water. Our hormonal fever was broken, and we all shuffled disconsolately off the stage. I caught a glimpse of Chris Montez shivering in the corner, a small, terrified man shrinking back from us girls. This is a piece of social history. Stuart McConey should be... Maybe Stuart wrote this. So anyway, I seek forgiveness, but not for attacking Chris Montez, because he did whip us all into a frenzy, and we were 15 after all. Not to the caretaker, who I think quite enjoyed himself with his stage brush. What is a stage brush? Anyway, but to history. I need forgiveness from history, because this event marked a change at the Newcastle City Hall. No one was allowed to sit on the stage after this concert. Security became professionalised, and, says Mazza, the world grew up. Okay, well, I don't know whether the world grew up or not, but after this, you can imagine, if you pay and you're legitimately sitting on the side of the stage, and then you attack poor Chris Montez, then the rules are going to change, and that's why they changed in 1963 at the Newcastle City Hall. Anyway, Mazza was there. She saw the Beatles. What do you say, Sister Bobby?
Simple, very simple, Mazza. You are forgiven because it's not your fault. Because it's the Beatles' fault. Because they're the ones that wound you up in the first place, and then they were gone, and you had nowhere to go. And then Chris Montez, well, basically, it's not really his fault, but I think he secretly enjoyed it. He wasn't shaking with fear in the side.
Well, but it was Mazza and Mazza's friends who leapt upon Tommy. Not upon Tommy Rowe. Tommy would have loved it on Chris Montez.
Chris Montez, yes.
Yeah.
But I say it's the Beatles' fault, so they are. She is forgiven, and they are forgiven. However, it's a shame that you weren't allowed to sit on the side of the stage. But, that's it.
That's the way it goes.
Shape of things to come. You're forgiven.
What do you say about that, Novice?
Well, poor old Tommy Rowe found cuddling the stage brush later on. I feel sorry for him. I think Chris Montez, what do you expect, twirling his tie around his head? I mean, that just...
Here he goes again.
There he goes. I know.
Any encouragement?
It's getting me going
Come
now,
on,
no
Chris, for
wonder.
heaven's sake, we don't want you again. We don't want you anymore.
Those stocky Italians, well, Mazza, you're absolutely forgiven. I mean, I would have stolen the stage as well if I was there.
Yes, why not?
Doubt.
Okay, so it's looking quite good for Mazza so far. The harsh tones of Caroline first.
Go on, Mazza. As someone that sat in many a football ground, one of yours actually, Mr. Barden, where you are behind a post and can't see anything. I know what it's like to be in that position. Them rules needed changing. They needed to get off that stage with no view and just someone's hair.
Derriere.
at the
So you're
back.
forgiving?
Derriere. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Completely forgiven.
Well, they were this week's confessions. Who did you forgive? Send in your own, please, because I think your soul has been stirred. Confessions at bbc.co.uk. If you miss any of the shows, you can listen back online. You can download to your smartphone or tablet from the BBC iPlayer radio app. What a thing that is. On Monday, we welcomed American author Amor Towles to the Radio 2 book club to discuss his latest novel, A Gentleman in Moscow. There's still a chapter of that online. Plus, we found out where on your body you can find your own frenulum. And you've got two. There's a minor one and a superior one. Ross Kemp endured his most dangerous assignment yet when he came in to talk to the show on Tuesday. Wednesday saw former Eagles bassist turned solo artist Timothy B. Schmidt come on the programme to talk about his new record, which is called Leap of Faith. And on Foodie Thursday, a flippin' good crepe cake was on Nigel's menu. Anyway, you can check all of those back on the iPlayer radio app or online, wherever you want to find it. And if you made it to the end of last week's podcast, I asked you to tweet, I'm quite partial to a Swift Cumberland Square 8, which sounds like an illegal cigarette, but actually, obviously, is a dance. Thanks to Ian and Matt and Caroline and Emma and loads of people who did just that. This week's intriguing code phrase to tweet, if you can be bothered, is check out my crooked scar. Thank you very much.